Þorbergsson. Valberg skorar. Valberg Guðmundsson hefur skorað. Ragnar Margeirsson og skoðamark. Glæsilega. Óskar Rafn á móti Bjarna. Og Bjarni með góða sendingu fyrir og Haraldur Ingvarsson.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Best of Pod Ever. I'm one of your hosts, Joe, and I'm joined as ever by Tryggvi. Tryggvi, how are you?
Hey, Joe. Yeah, I'm doing good. It's an exciting evening.
Yes, very exciting evening. We're actually going to start things off with that. Breiðablik has just made history by becoming the first Icelandic team to reach a group stage in a European competition. So, yeah, just very, very exciting. It ends 1-0 in the match, their home leg, second leg of the tie. They were going into that game with a 1-0 aggregate lead anyways. And so it ends 2-0 total in aggregate. And yeah, I actually managed to catch a vast majority of that game. It was much like the first leg, very choppy, very, it was a bit of a tough watch, if I'm being honest, but Victor Karl scored in the 3rd minute for Breiðablik, and then they were able to ride it out for the rest of the game. And yeah, Struga, I mean, they had some opportunities. I wouldn't really say that they had a lot of really good opportunities. I thought Breiðablik did much better this time shutting them down compared to the last leg, the first leg, where Struga just really probably should have come out of that with at least a goal. But yeah, Breiðablik did much better this time around, but it certainly made for a bit of a choppy game. But regardless, that is all behind us now, and it's really exciting to see them make the group stage of UEFA Conference League, Europa Conference League. And yeah, Tryggvi, tell me your thoughts. I mean, I can't wait to see who they draw.
Yeah, that's going to be super exciting. Like we talked about last podcast or the one before that, I think it would be nice to get a big team, at least one big team, if not two. Maybe Klaksvík, get a local, as close as we can get to a local derby. Yeah, but with the ranking, I guess they'll both be in the 4th ranking or whatever, however that works. But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, hopefully some nice teams, a big team at least. It would be nice to see them come to Iceland. The biggest thing we've had in the last few years is when Inter drew against Stjarnan in qualifying, and I think that was the biggest game so far. So
right, yeah. No, it's going to be really interesting to see what ends up happening. In terms of big names, I'm kind of looking through them a little bit right now, and honestly, I'm not seeing a ton that I would per se deem as like a big name. Pauk maybe from Greece, but I don't know how big you would say that is.
No, I mean, we're not going to, like I said, we're not going to get like Manchester United or Inter Milan or anything like that, but maybe. You know,
could get Aston Villa.
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, Icelanders love the Premier League, so that would be, to be honest, that would be bigger for them to get Aston Villa than to Inter Milan, I think, for some people. So yeah, there's teams out there.
Yeah. No, it's going to be really exciting. So congrats to Breiðablik, huge performance, and I just hope this kind of sets some precedents now going forward for not just Breiðablik. I think once you've had a taste, you want to come back for more. But I think also I'm hopeful that this motivates some other Icelandic teams to really continue to push on, right? I mean, with the quote unquote limited resources, I guess, of clubs in Iceland, you can only do so much at this point in time. But I think Breiðablik showed that you can do a lot on a quote unquote limited budget, right? Yeah, it's really impressive and fully deserved, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's something Icelandic football as a whole should have been aiming for. We're one of the very few countries left that hadn't qualified for a European group stage. So like you said, this shouldn't be the end. This should be the start. The Conference League was also invented for this sort of stuff, for us smaller countries to make it through, and
Exactly.
we just need to treat it as a start and hopefully make it into the Europa League in the next few years. That would be good.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so obviously we can't really talk too much about how we think they're going to do. The draw hasn't happened yet. I think it's tomorrow. If it's not tomorrow, it's Monday. Yeah, we'll have to see. So we'll talk about that on our next show, I'm sure, and maybe just kind of briefly evaluate their chances. So we'll leave Europe to one side now, and we'll talk about Breiðablik in the league. So it was a big match this past round 21. All teams have now played 21 games. There was a makeup game. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But Breiðablik was away to Víkingur, and boy, was there some drama in this game. So I don't even know where to start. Where should we start with this? Because, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we can give a bit of context, I guess. So, obviously, there was already drama in the beginning before the game even started. Breiðablik had appealed to the FA 3 times, I think, to get this game postponed because they said they wanted to be better prepared for the return leg against Struga. That request was refused, or those requests were refused. The FA cited sort of 2 reasons why they didn't want to do that. They didn't think it was realistic to lengthen the season because teams hadn't really planned on something like that. Like we are still a league that is semi-professional in many, many respects, right? You can't ask some players, especially like foreign players who maybe have made other plans, or even just, domestic players who maybe have other jobs. You can't ask all of them to extend the league. So that wasn't really deemed realistic. And then they'd also wanted to play over the international break that's coming up. Yeah, that doesn't really work because there's a lot of domestic players in the youth teams and stuff like that. So Breiðablik were already a bit upset before the game. I mean, it's something we've talked about before, and it's something I think the league needs to take into consideration in moving forward. We need to be planning this. I think, like you said last time, we shouldn't be talking about this a few days before they get the game. This should have been a conversation a year ago, basically, when they were planning the season. Try to build in some points where we can build in these delays because, I mean, yeah, it's I don't know. It's really hard to say, like, if we should. There are leagues that do this, that basically put the whole league campaign on hold for their European teams. It has happened. So it's hard to say whether we should do that as well. I mean, would we have done that if Breiðablik were somehow miraculously trying to qualify for the Champions League? Like, would that have changed things? Or is there a barrier for success? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this is not a conversation we should be having 2 days before kickoff.
Agreed. So day of the game shows up, right? And
Breiðablik don't.
There we go. Yeah, so you're keying into what I was just transitioning into. So Breiðablik, everybody's like, we're getting closer to the game. It's an hour before kickoff. No lineups have been released. The team's not, as it turns out, the team hasn't even showed up. Everybody's like, okay, like, what's going on here? Is this some sort of protest from Breiðablik, which I think it probably was in some form or fashion, about the decision not to postpone. And I think it was like 30 minutes before kickoff, this bus rolls up to Víkingur Stadium, and they just kind of roll off. And there's a picture that's gone kind of viral on social media of Oscar with, the whiteboard underneath his arm, and everybody's just kind of rolling off the bus and like, oh yeah, we're here. Like, we're going to play, but this is our preparation or whatever. And yeah, they just walked on, like, had a quick warm up and got ready for the game. Like, just, I don't know. Some people were like, oh, that's so immature, blah, blah. Like, I don't know. What do you think about it, Tryggvi?
Yeah, it's definitely mind games. There's been, and we'll talk about it, like what both managers said about it, but I don't know. If it would have worked, everyone would have called him a genius. I mean, it worked in the long run, I guess. They qualified for Europe, and Oscar would definitely say that's a success. That's what he was wanting to do. I don't know. I think it's a bit. I mean, it didn't do anything illegal. He didn't do anything that harmed anyone. So in that respect, if this is all he does, then that's fine. But it's a little bit, and then try to pretend like it's some sort of grand thing, and I don't know. It seems a little bit, a little weird.
Yeah, no, it does. It does a little bit. And so Breiðablik went into the game again. They were resting guys for the game that was today, for good reason, right? Trying to do something big that no one's ever done before. And so they, the lineup that they put out there was pretty inexperienced and definitely not their first starting 11, that's for sure. And it showed. It ended 5-3 in favor of Víkingur. Víkingur just kind of thrashed them, but to be fair, I'm not sure Breiðablik was mentally there, and if they were, I mean, credit to them, they got 3 goals in the game. There haven't been many teams that have scored 3 goals on Víkingur all season long. But at the same time, I think, I don't know, they just kind of put up the white flag a little bit. Like, I don't want to say that because they came and they played, and I don't think they were poor, but there was just not the effort to make, because traditionally this is one of the bigger games in the season, right? And so their focus was clearly elsewhere.
I guess that's maybe, like, it's hard to say. Like, he's done really well as a manager, both here and at Grótta, and it just seems like if you have this sort of game and you're going to rest a bunch of players, you're going to bring in young players. They brought in Ásgeir Helgi, who scored his first ever goal as a professional. They Kristoffer Ingi, who's definitely a bit more experienced, but he just came into this Breiðablik team, who also scored his first goal. This is a team that's very talented but inexperienced. So like the way I would think to set up this game is like, okay, like we're underdogs, but this is still Breiðablik. Like, we're a big team. Like, we're gonna take this seriously. We're gonna go at these guys. They think they're champions, but we're gonna show them. We're gonna show them they're not. Like, we're really gonna. And if you play well, you might be in chance to play in Europe. Like, Breiðablik's going to Europe is what he would have told his players, right? So it seemed, and they were. I mean, they were up for it. They started the game really well. I think they really. I don't know if Víkingur. They said that they were maybe a bit shocked by the whole entrance drama thing, and Breiðablik started off really well, but in the second half it just, the defenders really switched off. I think all the 3 goals that Víkingur scored were very easy. I mean, to be fair, in the first half as well, both the header that Nico Hansen scored was was quite easy as well. So I don't know. It seems like a weird way to, at least from the outside. I mean, maybe he said exactly this to them on the bus, but you would think that you would try to set up and make this like a bigger game than maybe it seemed like from the outside. Yeah,
I want to mention briefly Daniel Juric's his little goal celebration, because you may have seen it. We posted kind of a new thing that we are doing. We put all the goals, kind of a goals highlight reel on our Instagram this week. You can go check that out if you want. But you'll see in there that Juric is making the cry motion with his hands after he scored his goal, right? And he said later after the game that Breiðablik were playing clown games, and he couldn't care less that his goal was quote-unquote offsides, because I think if VAR was in the league, it probably would have been called off. But and then he also said, there's so much whining around us, so that's why he celebrated like that. Like, he was basically just seriously taking shots at Breiðablik there. And I think some people, after all the antics of the last couple weeks, feel like Breiðablik were trying to be a little bit of a sob story almost. And anyways, it's just crazy. So it just made me chuckle when I saw this. I don't know if you had any thoughts on the celebration, but
yeah, I mean, Daniel's a character as well. I really liked him in this game. I think he was really causing a lot of problems. I mean, he's been doing this all season. Every time I see him, I just wish he was on Coward. He just creates. He usually ends up creating something. Scored a really good goal. It was a bit offside, to be fair, but it was a really nice header into the ground and past the goalie. So I think he's a really good player.
So both coaches had some words to say after the game.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna be here all night if we say everything they said. But I mean, I think the main highlights was that Oscar, before the game, he was saying that, Víkingur aren't used to this level of European football, and so that, they don't know how this feels, how it's like, how it is to be in this position. And then after the game, congratulated them on the league win, but then, followed it up with, and we're doing maybe not so well in the league, but we're on a different trip this summer, and we have to accept the fact that we'll not win the Icelandic Championship this year, but we'll be back next year, and we have other things to fight for. So underhanded compliment. And Arna didn't really respond to that, and it's more when he was talking about the postponement in the beginning. He just sort of said, yeah, no, it's there's no reason for it. We just wanted to spend more time at home. But then after the game, it started to leak out, and he said in some interviews like a few days later that the away changing room is really poor. It smells bad, and it's not. He doesn't want to spend time in there, and like that's also why after the game they just went straight onto the bus. It was a bit like a youth tournament, like seeing these kids come, on and off the bus right after the game, and then he said like, I don't know why the report showed up late. It must have been a failure in the computer system. It happened before this summer with other teams. So it's, he came with some things, and I mean, Arnar I don't think he responded as much. I think he was on a bit of a high as well. I don't think he felt the need to respond to Oscar too much. He sort of said that didn't hear these comments from Oscar. And I don't want to waste any more words answering Oscar or Breiðablik. So it was, a bit of a back and forth, and this is not over. I mean, they still have to play each other. Lest we forget, this is only the beginning, right?
More drama to come, perhaps. Ay. That's crazy. These two teams have definitely been interesting when they meet.
Sure.
This season, that's for sure. Maybe we should mention as well, so a few things, and I don't want to spend too much more time on this game, but Nikolai Hansen, he went off injured. Helgi took over, and Helgi scored his goal, took his opportunity pretty well, and so props to him. The Víkingur midfield, I agree with this. You have this in the notes. They look really, really like impenetrable, right? With both Pablo and Aaron Ellis. And I think we're going to talk about one of those a little bit later. But yeah, solid midfield. And obviously, since Logi left, there had to be some changes from Arnar to the starting 11. And so Matty Villa started this game at left back. And yeah, he did all right, I thought. Yeah, he did pretty good. Probably better than all right. He did good. So
I think it helped that Breiðablik weren't full strength. I think a full strength Breiðablik bombing down those wings would have caused them maybe a bit more issues, but I think for this game he just needed a bit of experience, and he's more than capable of doing that, which is, it really speaks a lot for this guy. He came in after a pretty disappointing. There was some, you might want to ignore this. There was some talk on the game in the commentary that they were really praising Arna for getting Matti, bringing Matti in, and that he had to put the winning mentality back in him after being a loser in FO first.
What?
It was a little bit harsh, I felt, but yeah, it's he's certainly proving himself to be a winner, for sure.
I think that's a little harsh. I mean, last season wasn't great, that's for sure, at all. But we've done all right without him, so it's fine. All right. Any other thoughts on that game?
No, I mean, I think it tells a story that we talk more about the drama than the game. That's very much what Oscar wanted. It worked. I think people are going to be talking about the bus thing a lot more than the 5-3.
Yeah,
but yeah,
sure.
A good game from Víkingur. Poor from Breiðablik, you could say, from defensive point of view. I think they should have done much better. They had some moments where they kept Nikolai Hansen pretty quiet apart from that one goal, but in the second half they just completely fell apart, and Víkingur just walked through them.
All right, well, let's go back to the start of the match day then. So we'll kick things off with Kawa. They hosted Stjarnan at home. Kawa, 2-1 winners. Huge performance. It's amazing. They, I think they have a mission to try to get into the top half of the league. A clear goal. Yeah, big opportunity for them. They took advantage of it, and yeah, got the 3 points. So. Funny, a couple things stood out to me in this game. One of them being the XG. So it came out a little later that Stjarnan had 2.97 XG in this game, which is pretty good compared to 1.02 for Kawa, and yet Kawa runs out 2-1 winners in this game. So part of Stjarnan's XG probably came from the fact that they had a penalty that was missed. Yeah, that was one thing that stood out. The other thing was that Jokul was not on the sidelines in this game. He was absent because of the birth of his third child. So did that play a factor at all in this game, I wonder?
They've been talking about that a lot after this game, that the fact that Stjarnan doesn't have an assistant coach, because Jökull was the assistant to August when he took over, and they still haven't hired one. And then that meant that Björn Bergbruder stepped in as manager. He's a player. He's not part of the coaching staff. And there's been a lot of talk, whether they don't have an assistant, but there's a lot of experienced people around. There's ex-players. There's ex-managers who are in and around the team. Couldn't one of them have stepped in? Some people say it's that Jökull doesn't want some outsider to come in to dilute his philosophy and dilute his way of playing. And I mean, like you said, they have 2.97 XG, so it's not like they played terribly. So, and Jökull came out after that and said, we'll never know if it would have helped to put someone else in, or I don't think it's a terrible idea. It's a very young team. You're a very young manager. You're trying to build something. And it is hard if you just bring in some outsider who's maybe not been a part of it. So, and Björn Berg he's a very experienced player who's been there for a while. So he knows what Jökull wants. So why not?
Yeah. Now this game was really choppy for me in terms of the stream. So I didn't actually get to see a ton of this game. Yeah. So was it Emil that missed the penalty?
Yeah, Emil missed the penalty and could have made it 2-2, right?
Yes.
It'll be interesting to see how decisive that will be. If both for Kawa and Stjarnan are assured top 6, but they're trying to get 4th place, right? Even 3rd place now with Breiðablik misstepping a few times. So a point there, maybe even could they have equalized and then snuck it at the break and then pulled even closer to Breiðablik? And then, do they want to get Kawa into this mix? They seem like they're hitting form right at the right moment. So do they want Kawa there in this top 6 mix? So it will be interesting to see how decisive these 3 points for Kawa will be.
And Kawa faced Fylkir in round 22, last round before the split. Yeah, it's a big opportunity. And I think we should also mention probably that Elfar Arni got on the score sheet again this week. He's really picked up form, scoring 3 goals over the last 2 games for Kawa, which that includes the makeup game against FH that happened yesterday, which we'll talk about here in just a second. So yeah, he's picking up form at the right time. Speaking of FH, we're gonna hop down to them. That was the other game on Saturday, and they run out 3-2 winners over Valor. They hosted Valor at home, and so kind of the woes continue a little bit for Valor. This was a bit of a crazy game, and all 3 goals from FH honestly were, I don't know, a bit fortunate maybe. So it was raining, and the pitch wasn't draining so well, and I think Valor struggled with that a little bit. Like they knew it going in. There were some comments I saw. They had discussed that, I think, before the game. Hey, watch the ball on the field, right? It's like slowing down at these certain points. And it was interesting because it seemed to be almost like the exact same locations on either side of the field, like right on the, I don't know, as a viewer, it was on the left side of like the 18-yard box on either side, if that makes sense. And yeah, there's just like the ball would roll there and it would just like die. It just died. And so, there were a couple back passes that Valor made that didn't quite make it to the goalie, and FH took advantage, certainly on one of the goals. And then on the first goal, David Snare capitalized on a mistake from the Valor goalkeeper. He was trying to take a touch so that he could boot it forward, but when he took his touch, like the ball rolled out, but then it hit the puddle and it died. And so, yeah, so interesting. Sorry, not David Snare. Gearther capitalized on that. That was the one. The back pass was David Snare's for the first goal that didn't quite make it to the goalkeeper. So, anyways, so that certainly played a factor. That being said, though, I think it's a fair assessment to say that Gearther also had a pretty good game up front. You know, he nabbed 2 of the 3 goals for FAO, and that's a huge 3 points for us because given what happened in the game in midweek against Kawa, if we had not gotten those 3 points, I think I'd be sweating a little more bullets right now than I already am. Again, we're with Valor just not able to really find anything. They've kind of lost their mojo. Like their fire is gone a little bit, and they just didn't look good. FAO did a good job pressing forward, I thought, but we still struggle, I think, offensively and also defensively, playing the 3 at the back. There were certainly opportunities that Valor had to capitalize on that, and they couldn't. And maybe on another day they would have, because playing 3 at the back, I think, really came back to bite us against Kawa, which again we'll talk about here in maybe just a second. But also, no Adam Eager in the squad. What's going on there?
Yeah, there seems to be some stuff happening with him. There was a story. It's all a little bit confusing. There was a story that Adam Eager was potentially at a festival, but then I honestly didn't quite understand it. If he was or wasn't at the festival, I think he was, and then there's some other players were there. Nothing really happened, but it still got a bit pushed out of the team. And then to make it even worse for Adam, like we've spoken about, he's been linked to a move to Norway, specifically Strømsgodset recently, and apparently there was an oral agreement with him, and everything was basically ready, and then the Norwegian team pulled out at the last second. So that's also a blow for him as well. So I don't know, maybe that played a part with him being pulled out of the team. He's been linked to a move all summer, right? So to have that pulled from under him at the last second would have hurt for sure. But he wasn't even in the squad, and then he asked to train with the reserves. So, but yeah, Valur struggled in this game. They do play, like we've spoken about all season. They play a very specific way. It's very much on the ground cutbacks from the wings, and they don't score that. Like you said, they don't score too many from set pieces or crosses or things like that. I think that maybe they started to do that a bit in the beginning with Andre Runar. But they haven't really done that too much lately. But then they ended up scoring, wasn't it, from both of them from headers or something like that? I'm blanking on the goals right now, but I remember at least one of them.
Yeah, one of them was. Yeah.
So I think it didn't help the pitch situation, but I also think remember the pass back was. You could see Holmar was struggling with the ball. He was, when he was dribbling with it, he couldn't really get it under control because he kept stopping on the pitch, and he still decided to pass it back to the goalkeeper. So it was a bit, he didn't have the greatest week with this and the previous game, and now Holmar they've just announced it today that he was suspended for sort of a push, semi-punch, shove thing that he did against Víkingur a few weeks ago. So he's been suspended for that. So a pretty dreadful week for Holmar.
Yeah, that's crazy. They're definitely a team that's cooled off, and it'll be interesting to see what they do once the split happens. Fredrik Schramm was also on the bench for this game, and it looks like maybe he had picked up an injury or something.
Yeah, we talked about it last time that he looked like against Víkingur. He looked like he wasn't fully fit, and he was left out of this game. And Arnar, the manager, said that he was injured, so that's why he was left out. So I think they were trying to risk him and push him a bit for the big game against Víkingur, and it didn't really work, unfortunately for them.
All right, big 3 points there for FAO, but then there was a midweek game yesterday against Kawa, and they dropped the ball again at home. So Kawa comes in. Kawa, who hasn't performed so great this season away from home, but they came in and they got a 3-0 win against FAO, and so just totally different game from in terms of FH than what we saw against Valor, right? And FH continued to try to press Kawa, but Kawa handled it really well, and nothing really fell their way. I mean, FH certainly had chances, especially in the first half. It was an okay first half. Second half was not as great. Yeah, FH was missing Bjorn Daniel pretty good this game, you could tell. And yeah, he just wasn't in the midfield to kind of be the glue to hold it together. And we missed that for sure. I think that could have made a difference. One other thing I noticed as well is that Kawa did a really good job on the break against us, getting the ball down the field quickly, especially against a 3-man back line. And we had a really hard time recovering from that. So playing 3 in the back, I think, bit us a little bit. But yeah, Heimer after the game came out and said, we were the worst for ourselves in this game. I thought we played well in the first half, created some good chances. One was saved on the line and something else, but naturally we're just like in most games. Yeah, I agree with him. I mean, we did okay the first half. Second half wasn't as good. So now Kawa have bridged the gap. It's down to 3 points between Kawa, FH, and Kaur and Stjarnan, but Stjarnan have such a high goal differential that I don't think that they really need to worry. Yeah, so it's gonna be interesting because FH now go to face Breiðablik in their last game, and Kawa have Fylkir, and so that's gonna make things real tough. FH have a -3 goal differential at the moment, whereas Kawa have a -5. So there's an opportunity there for FH to slip down into the bottom half of the league, which would be really disappointing, I'd have to say, after the season we've had. It's been up and down, but I think overall, I think it's been good. I think there's been more ups than downs. And so I would personally hate to see that happen. I know I'm showing my colors here. You have to credit Kawa. They've really been able to put a couple of results back together, and they've never really been far off it, honestly, all season. They've kind of hung around the middle, and now that Europe is over, they've focused in on what they need to do, and they're starting to put these results together, and I think that's been a difference for them. I would suspect they're going to get a result against Fylkir. And so I think it's going to come down to what FH can do against Breiðablik.
Yeah, I think it says a little bit about how tight the league is, right? It's not like it's 3 points between 4th and 10th like it was for a lot of the league. They still had 2 wins, and then they're in touch of top 6, right? It does say a little bit. Stjarnan has done really well to bounce back from a pretty terrible start. Kawa as well, but they've still been a bit inconsistent, and then FH a little bit as well. Like none of these 3 teams have had a truly fantastic season. I think it's more like good seasons based on context, right? Stjarnan have sold half their team and are 14 years old.
Yeah.
Kawa is trying to build, a bit the same. Sold off all their older players and have really tried to build with some younger teams. And then FH is really going through a bit of a rebuild job with Heimir back in the chair. So in context, it's pretty, like you said, pretty decent seasons for all 3. But they've both been really inconsistent, which means that Kawa can catch up to them like this. So it'll be, like we said before, and it'll be interesting to see what sort of beast they are now in the top 6. Can they continue this run and maybe even snag 4th?
Well, so another team in the mix as well there is Kaur, and so they ran out 2-0 winners over Fylkir, and yeah, I think you caught most of this game. So how was it?
It was okay. It was very much like how you'd expect this game to go. 1-0, 2-0 to Kaur. The major wrench in their game plan was the sending off of the goalkeeper, which was just the silliest thing I've seen in a while. He just picked it up outside the penalty area. It wasn't like miles off, but it was still decent, like pretty obvious. No need for VAR there. It was right at the start of the second half. But to be honest, for Fylkir, it wasn't their best game. I think they should have, like we've seen this season, Kaur aren't perfect. You can pressure them, you can really get some balls in there, and make it this young team, young defense suffer a bit, and the goalkeepers haven't always been the most solid, so you can make this team suffer, but Fylke just didn't really seem like it, and to be honest, for a big portion of the second half, I forgot that they're one man up. It's so I think that's, they just never really were a threat. They did score in the very end, but it was ruled for offside, and that was sort of when the game was kind of over, and Kauer maybe switched off for 2 seconds. Yeah, Kauer it was good. I think they changed up the tactical setup after the sending off. They put, I think, 5 in midfield, so they had to actually substitute Luke Gray, who would come on for Christian Floki.
Yeah, but Luke wasn't too happy about that, is what I understand.
No, yeah, it's one of the coaches offered him a coat, and he just stormed past him, sat on the bench.
Yeah. I think I saw that the manager came out afterwards though and said, yeah, it was just he was kind of victim of circumstances. Like it wasn't anything personal. It wasn't because he was maybe performing poorly. We needed to make his change, and he was the one whose stick was drawn. And then he he said he's gonna get caramel tomorrow. So hopefully Luke got a nice box of caramels.
Yeah, no, he didn't do anything wrong. I think he was quite lively when he came on. Floki came off injured, and people had feared the worst, feared his season was over. But now it's come out today that it's not quite that bad, so he could maybe get some games at the very end of the playoffs, or not the playoffs, but the split leagues, the championship. So that would be good for him. It would be quite disappointing for him to have another winter ruined by injuries and come into the season cold. But no, I think the tactical switch worked. He had towards the end, it was really sort of fun to watch Kitty-O and Kenny and Yoe, all 3 fullbacks kind of just sort of running all over the pitch. They were just like it was like watching ice hockey, power play. They were just like storming everywhere. They had no position. They were just, you could see like Yoe running from right back to striker to left back, and then you had Kristen do it like sort of in midfield, and it worked in the end. Kristen, he scored the goal in the first half, which was a bit of a fluke, a nice free kick that eluded everyone went in the back of the net, and then the second half he pretty nice assist for Sigurður Bjartur. So he had a pretty good game.
Yeah, and maybe a little bit of an expensive win as well for Kauer, perhaps.
Yeah, thankfully the injury wasn't as bad as that, but it's sending off and a potential season-ending injury is not how you want to play games against Fylkir like that. That should have just been a bit more routine, I think. And
so Kauer has IBVF in the last round, whereas Fylkir, as we've already mentioned, they face Kauer. Yeah, interesting to see if Fylkir can do anything, because they've not as great of a result as they had against IBVF.
Yeah, they'll be disappointed and really hoping they can bounce back against Kauer, but Kauer should have enough in them to at least get a draw against IBVF, but especially how they perform this week. But yeah.
Good. We'll leave that one to one side and move on to Keflavik Fram. So Keflavik at home. This ended 0-0. Honestly, not a lot to say from this game. I thought Nacho had a good game here. It looks like Lubicic had a goal that was ruled out somewhat controversially. I have not seen that yet. I don't know if you've had a chance to have a look at that. But yeah, not too much to talk about here. Just two teams that are looking for points and they each come away with 1 and no goals. It was not the greatest outing.
No, I think the main thing was the miss from Aronio, not that one. I think he should put that in his shirt. Aronio, not that one. It was a pretty poor miss. I think he even rounded the keeper and had a shot cleared off the line. Like that was I don't understand how he didn't score, because he's had a pretty good season. He's been one of Fram's more
potent players,
stable performers. Yeah, exactly. So it's a big miss. But let's see how costly that will be.
All right, moving on. Haucow 2, EBVuff 2. So both of us were watching this game on Monday. This was the Monday game. Yeah, once again, not the prettiest game. Haucow actually blew a 2-0 lead in this match, and so EBVuff came back. They got somehow they snagged a point at the end. And Soyberg was also on the score sheet again. We've talked a lot about him. I think he's proving to be a really good signing for Haucow. It was a deflected goal, but from way out, he just looked up. I guess he saw a keeper off his line or something and just fired it. And yeah, it was deflected, but it went in, and so another goal for him. And then that was the second goal. Egerton got the first. Yeah, kind of the usual from Haucow. They looked good at home, and then lo and behold, Richard King pulls one back. The Jamaican kid pulls one back for EBVuff. I think he was offside in this. It was really hard to see from the TV angles. But yeah, so that is a bit controversial, I suppose. And then I can't remember who scored the equalizer for EBVuff, but it was late, and yeah, they come out with a point, which I think for Haucow was disappointing, especially to give up a lead like that. And for EBVuff, I think that'll probably prove to be a good point. And I didn't actually think that EBVuff played too poorly. They were definitely willing to put in the effort. They haven't given up. I did want to mention Brew, who was a new signing for them. He started this game, and I was kind of watching him closely, and I thought he did okay. He was just right in between 0 and 10. He was just kind of sitting in the middle. He didn't really have much of an effect on the game per se, but he wasn't poor, right? And so, yeah, I just wonder if he's still maybe adjusting a little bit. But anyways, something to keep an eye on, especially since you guys play him next, right? We'll see what he ends up doing against Cowler.
What struck me the most, to be honest, about this game was two things. I think both goalkeepers were quite good. I think E. Smith, especially in the first half, really kept the scoreline from going too far away from EBVuff. I think he pulled off some nice saves. I don't think any of the goals were his fault. And the Haucow goalkeeper as well. I don't think any of the goals were his fault either. I think there wasn't that much happening in this game, like you said, but there were a few shots and a few nice shots and a few chances, and I think they handled it pretty well. And then the second, I think, was how much the EBVuff equalizer reminded me of FO's equalizer in the exact scoreline about a week ago, right? Just this ball that's completely seemed like it fizzled out, and then ended up in a cross, and then it somehow deflected, went in the back of the net. It was just I don't know, just a bit of a carbon copy in a bad way. Yeah,
it certainly did resemble that for sure, and no late goals for Haucow in this one to come away with a win. In fact, they did the opposite this time. They gave up a late goal. So yeah. All right. That's round 21 done and dusted. When we come back, we're going to talk about our 3 stars of the round, and then we'll take another short break and we'll talk about some news from around the league. So stay tuned. Okay, Tryggvi, 3 stars of the round. Who you got?
Yeah, I touched on a bit before. I think Kristinn Jónsson did a really good job. He was just scored a goal, assisted a goal, but then he was just all over the pitch. This is exactly how he can play. I think defensively he hasn't looked super solid this season. There's been way too much space down that side, especially against counter-attacking teams like Valur and Víkingur. They know how to target him, but give him, a bit more of attacking role, put him a bit forward, and this is exactly what he's done, and shows why he's one of the best players in the league on his day. Fantastic game from him.
Yes, agreed. I think another player who performed really well was Geirþjóðr Raffin from FH. We obviously put these 3 stars together before the midweek game, and so perhaps maybe we would swap him out for Elfar Arni. I think is definitely in the conversation as well. But no, we'll stick with it because he had a really good performance. Converted center back, actually. I don't know how they came to that conclusion, but they moved him from the back to the front, and he snagged 2 goals again, and again on limited minutes. He's got the best goal per minute ratio in the league this season at the moment, which is impressive. And unfortunately, not able to do much against Kawa yesterday, but still a good performance from him, and especially against a Valor team that I think a lot of people maybe would have thought were going to take that game, especially since Valor jumped out to the lead in the game itself. And so, yeah, that's our second star.
Yeah, I think it's fair to keep him because, the FKA game was, I think, technically round 14. So we were talking round 21. So
true. Good point.
So that's fine. And then, third star, I think, has to go to Aron Elís, who, with Pablo Puñet in the midfield, was just he's been really had a really good season so far with Víkingur. It's not the whole season. He joined on July 15th, I think. And this game, he was just fantastic. A goal, almost 2, dangerous in the middle of both ways, and a pretty interesting stat that Víkingur have won every single game they've had since Aron Elís has arrived. So that includes the second leg against Riga that they won, but not enough to qualify to the next round. But yeah, they've won every single game in every competition since he's joined. And I think opponents will be shaking a little bit for next season. Yeah,
seriously. We knew he was going to be a big signing when they got him, right? Like we were pretty impressed with that as it was. And so, yeah, that's an impressive stat. That's great. It just makes you wonder if they maybe would have progressed if he had been in one game earlier, right? Maybe they would have gone a little further in Europe, but no, it's a good signing for him. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure we've also had a Víkingur player in our 3 stars of the round for each of the times we've done it too. So, I that speaks to the quality of the team.
Yeah, we need to exclude them from next round, just out of principle.
Yeah, there you go. Cool. All right. Well, yeah, those are our 3 stars of the round. So props to them. When we come back, we're going to do a little bit of a news roundup, and we're going to talk about the Iceland squad. The team was just released yesterday, so stay tuned. All right, welcome back for the final part of this episode. We're gonna start with some transfer news, or updates, I suppose. Well, where do you want to start, Tryggvi? Well, let's start with Víðar. Víðar Ari, he's off again. So short stint at FO. I think we mentioned this. Did we mention this on the last episode? I can't remember, but yeah,
I think so.
He looked like he was going to Norway, and that was officially confirmed today. So he is off to HamKam.
This has happened before, that players sign these sort of deals that, okay, if an offer comes from abroad, I'm allowed to leave because they might not want to commit to a whole season and then transfer fee if someone comes in for them or something. So it's a nice way for them to stay fit and advertise themselves a bit to foreign clubs, especially if they're out of contract. So he's done well at FO, signed with HamKam. It'll be interesting to see if he can get his foreign career back on track after a bit of a mixed time in Hungary.
Well, in HamKam, or team right now who could probably use him, they're in a little bit of a relegation fight, and so I think he'll be a good addition to them, and he obviously has experience playing in the Eliteserien already with Sandefjord, so he should adjust quickly. So they'll be missed at FO. I think that was evident yesterday already, but a good luck to him. So there's some news about August Ori.
Yeah, maybe some of you read that it was confirmed. We talked about it, I think, before. He's been linked abroad for a while, and he's officially moved to Genoa in Italy now from Breiðablik. He just joined from Malmö, I think, this season. He went to Malmö for a few months, came back to Breiðablik, and now off again. Short stint. There was an interview with Oscar about him, about the transfer because it had just been confirmed, and asking whether he's surprised about this quick turnaround from joining from Malmö and going straight to Italy, to a pretty decent side. And he said, yeah, he was a bit surprised, sort of positively surprised that he's done this well. And he said one of his best games were against the top teams in the league. So it shows really the character of this player, that he's not scared. He's not going to run from a fight. He runs all over the pitch, and he's really technically gifted. So it'll be really interesting to see how he fares in Italy. There's been a bit of an influx of Icelandic players to Italy in the last few years. Not all of them have been the biggest successes. So hopefully August will be the one to break the trend.
What's funny about the comment is, and maybe it's just me, but he didn't really stand out to me a lot. I mean, I'm happy for him, and I think it's a great move to go to Italy. But yeah, I don't know. Just for me, anyways, he didn't stand out a ton. But.
No, I mean, he's not. I don't think he's the flashiest player, and especially in a team like Breiðablik, where it's filled with these guys who are scoring crazy goals and going past a bunch of players. And I think what he did really well, and what Oscar said as well, he's just all over the pitch. He just works really hard and works for the team, and maybe that's his biggest strength right now, and then he needs to catch up in terms of technicality with Serie A.
And it looks like Christian Floki was a target for Breiðablik.
Yeah, they were talking to him because of his injury, and then it came out that there was some interest from Breiðablik in the summer. It's no secret that they were looking for a striker to replace both Stefán Ingi and Patrick Johannesson, who's still injured from the beginning of the season. And according to Christian Floki, they were looking. I'm not sure. I don't know if they made a full bid or they just sort of inquired about him, but it wasn't. They couldn't match Kawa's valuation of him, so he stayed put. There was a bit of a famous case a few years ago when he came from FC Copenhagen back to FO. There was sort of a signing announcement that he had joined Breiðablik, and then like a few hours later, they pulled that back and said, no, I'm joining FO. And then he had to put like a whole apology letter, and it was a bit of a big deal. So they tried again and no success. Maybe they'll try again in the winter.
Interesting. Well, let's move on now to the Iceland national team. So the squad for the upcoming European qualifiers was released on Wednesday. That's yesterday. And yeah, there were some big names missing and some exciting players called in. I think we're starting to see some of these, the rest of the generation that had qualified for the World Cup begin to really cycle out. So there was no Birkir Bjarnason, no Aaron Einar Gunnarsson, and no Albert Gudmundsson. Means that there might be possible debuts for Christian Nokvi, who's playing at Ajax, and Ori, who is playing at FC Copenhagen. FC Copenhagen just qualified for Champions League, so that's good for him. Ajax qualified for Europa League. That game just finished while we were recording. So some opportunities at the club, and now some opportunities with the national team. 2 games, one against Luxembourg and one against Bosnia. And if memory serves, they've already played Bosnia. That was I think it was a 3-0 loss, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's an exciting squad. IBJ is back as well. He did pretty good this last weekend for Dusseldorf, his new home, which was exciting and promising. So really happy about that. Good to see him get the playing time. Yeah, qualification right now isn't looking great, is it?
No, I think it was quite positive the last window, although it lost both games, but I think the performance was much more positive than it's been in the last few months. So, but yeah, qualifying is, I don't think it's going to happen. We have 3 points after 4 games. Second place is Slovakia with 10 points. Luxembourg is third with 7. So yeah, qualifying will be, if we qualify, it's through some sort of Nation League, sort of backdoor something. I think it's pretty much. I think this qualifying should be quite a lot about building a team. I think that's something we haven't been able to do. We started building a team. It didn't really go well for a number of reasons. Then we sort of came back, try to bring back some of the older generation to try to at some point we had like basically the entire team back, or as many as are still playing. And now that maybe they're starting to drip out again, we'll see. We'll see how the next few rounds go. But it's interesting. It's hopefully Kristján Nökkvi gets to play. Orri would be nice to give him a few minutes, and just in general, just to get a bit of a team feeling, a bit of a feel of what Åge Hårde wants to build with his team. But yeah, no Albert.
Yeah, there's a little bit of controversy surrounding him at this moment in time. Some allegations have come forth. He denies them, and there's not a ton of information, I don't think. You correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, it's kind of a sad situation.
Yeah, no, nothing's come out, just allegations of sexual assault, and which he's denied. And that's the reason he's excluded. The reason that the FA is given as to why he's excluded is just he's under investigation, and people under investigation will not be selected for the national team. So it was a bit of an automatic exclusion. So we'll see how that turns out.
One last thing that's coming to mind too, and this doesn't have to do necessarily with the national team at the moment, but Gylfi Sigurdsson, he signed with Lyngby, so that's kind of exciting. It's good to see him back.
Yeah, replaced Alfred, who went to Belgium.
That's kind of
Lyngby is becoming a bit of an Icelandic hub.
Yeah, are you gonna hop over? I mean, that's like a hop, skip, and a jump for you. Are you gonna hop over there?
Yeah, I can bring Orri with me.
All right, well, that is all we have time for in this episode. Thanks for joining us again. Please take a minute to give us a nice rating and review if you can on whatever platform you listen to, and please be sure to share us with your friends. And you can find some of our other stuff that we do, including our Team of the Week and our 3 stars of the round. We've put together some nice graphics for you to check out on our Twitter and Instagram accounts. You can find those at Besta English. And Tryggvi, any final words?
I would love to get people's opinions on Team of the Year. I mean, the season's definitely not over. We're going into the split, but it would be nice to get some input from people. Let's start talking about it. Who's gonna make it? Let's see if anyone sneaks in at the very end. Is Anton Søyberg gonna make Team of the Year? At the very end, let's get talking.
If he scores again this weekend, he should. Controversial. No, I'm just messing. Yeah, well, yeah. So send us your recommendations. Tweet us any questions you have. We're here. We'd love to answer some. And yeah, thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.